The most disappointing season in Suns history has finally come to a close, and the offseason moves have already begun. We all knew that this was going to happen. Mike Budenholzer ultimately was fired after one season, and this is now the third coach in Matt Ishbia's tenure as the owner of the Phoenix Suns. This will now be Devin Booker's eighth coach when the eventual next guy gets hired in his 11th season. And this Suns team, what a disaster it was throughout this entire year. A team that had championship expectations with a big three of Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal to not only not make the playoffs, but to not even win one playoff game as constructed. It's an absolutely unbelievable thing to see. Nobody saw this coming. And for the Phoenix Suns, it's going to be a long off season with some big time moves still yet to come. Everybody thought when Kevin Durant came over to pair up with Devin Booker that this would be absolutely money. We saw them win more games off of the Denver Nuggets in 2022 than any other team did. The Nuggets would go on to win the championship, and Phoenix would really make that a competitive series. They won 2 games, and Denver would ultimately go on to beat everybody else in less than that. And that gets you excited for the future. What can Devin Booker and Kevin Durant look like when you construct a great team around it? We all know what happened. They did this shuffle game. They got rid of CP3, got rid of DeAndre Ayton, brought in Bradley Beal, thought that adding that third scorer would really be the biggest difference for this team. And boy, it was not. It was ultimately the addition of Bradley Beal that I think hurt this team so much in the long run. Of course, you have Devin Booker that tried to play that point guard role last year, and you have Kevin Durant who kind of felt like his role was minimalized to a sense last year, like he was just put in the corner and wasn't able to go out there and be himself. And then you have Bradley Beal. What do you do with him? A guy that was a prolific scorer with Washington, but he's not necessarily the most efficient off-ball scorer that you could really add to a team. He doesn't make it work, and that's the issue when you pair together Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant. And we finally saw that this season when they didn't even make the play-in. They didn't even make the playoffs, and now they don't even have a lottery pick, and they're the only team in the NBA that's not in either 3 of those categories. And that's the tough part for Phoenix, because with this big 3, they have no playoff wins, and it's currently the highest payroll in all of basketball. They were a first-round exit last year, didn't win one playoff game against Minnesota, got swept on their home floor, and then they come back this year, put up a stinker, don't even get into the play-in, start out super hot. I believe they were 8-1 to start the year. They were the 2 seed at a certain point. KD would get injured, and then everything would go downhill. And that's the toughest part for me when you look at this entire Phoenix equation, because I've had the very awesome opportunity of covering this team, being a credentialed media member for this team, and watching every single player, seeing how they go through everything. Kevin Durant is ultimately going to leave this team, and the writing has been on the wall for months now. And this isn't a Kevin Durant issue, like everyone's going to make it, oh, Kevin Durant wants to go to another team. No, Phoenix has to do this. The Phoenix Suns are in a cap purgatory right now with Bradley Beal, with KD, and with Booker. The most expensive payroll in basketball. This is not a Kevin Durant issue. This is an issue of Bradley Beal not having a trade clause. Phoenix can't get rid of him to clear up some money to get some more flexibility. So what Phoenix has to do now is, because they gave up so much for KD and because they gave up so much for Brad Beal, they have to trade Kevin Durant to get draft picks back, just to be able to kind of figure things out. So the way I see it, they fired Budenholzer. We all knew that that domino was going to fall. And the next domino to fall now, and Shams reported it, is that Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns are going to mutually work together to find him a trade destination. And we're going to see how it transpires over the next few weeks, because we're going to see what team, maybe like a Houston Rockets, maybe like a Dallas Mavericks, what team that loses early on feels like they want to go out and be aggressive. What team feels like they are a Kevin Durant away from winning a championship? And that's when you're going to have the bidders come out to try and get KD. And in my opinion, the Suns have to do this because they have to get some assets back for Kevin Durant. They're going to use an asset or 2 and then trade away Bradley Beal, and then they don't have either one of those guys on the team next year. And then they're going to go all out and build around Devin Booker. And the biggest problem I have with the way this entire season went, the way Kevin Durant's tenure went with the Suns, is that they couldn't ultimately win anything. And let me tell you this, it is not KD's fault one bit. This dude has been unbelievable since I've watched him. Unbelievable. I mean, he's averaging more points than any 36-year-old in NBA history. KD has been unbelievable. Watching him take over for this team, watching him be that elite scorer that we all know him to be, it's unbelievable to watch. And I can't stress that enough, because a lot of people, when they talk about Kevin Durant, they talk about the move to the Warriors, or they talk about the move to the Nets. They talk about the different moves that he's had throughout his career and how does that affect his quote unquote legacy. Now, this is going to be another thing that people look at. And I've already seen some people talking about it on Twitter, but it's like, oh, KD did nothing with the Suns. How are we going to criticize him for this? And in my opinion, you can't criticize him for this season at all. If you think this season was on Kevin Durant, you're absolutely crazy. This is on everybody else, in my opinion. And it's a shame that they didn't ultimately make the postseason, win any playoff games. But that's why big change has to come in Phoenix, and we're going to see it a lot. So, and in my opinion, Budenholzer is the first domino to fall. We're going to see Kevin Durant get shipped to maybe the Houston Rockets. They have the best chance to get him, in my opinion. I think you have Dallas. It's going to be a sleeper in that situation. Maybe San Antonio as well, with De'Aaron Fox, Wembanyama, and Stephon Castle. But it's going to be really interesting to see how this summer plays out for not only KD, but for the Phoenix Suns and this entire thing. We know that they're going to be aggressive to try and build around Devin Booker, and I don't disagree with that necessarily. You know, and if it was possible, I'd really like them to build around Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. And I know that nobody wants Bradley Beal right now, but if they could trade Beal or if they could buy him out, I would just be curious to see how that would look. I would love to see Kevin Durant and Devin Booker run it back for one more season. Truly, I think that James Jones did a really good job with this rookie class, with Oso Ighodaro, with Ryan Dunn, with Colin Gillespie. Like, they have some pieces. I don't think Tyus Jones will be back. I highly doubt Bol will be back, but I think you can still put together a pretty formidable team. And when you have Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, it's not like you need star power around them. That's been the biggest misconception with this Phoenix Suns team over the last few seasons and why they ultimately failed. You don't need to put other superstars around those two guys when they can take over any ball game and be the best player on the floor at any moment. That's been the biggest issue. That's been the biggest disconnect with this Phoenix team. Instead, they needed to put more guys like Cody Martin, more guys like Colin Gillespie, more guys like Ryan Dunn around Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, not more guys like Bradley Beal or Tyus Jones. They needed scrappers. They needed dogs. They needed guys that could be elite defenders. That's what they needed. And it ultimately failed. And now this is going to be a long, ugly offseason for Phoenix, in my opinion. Devin Booker will now have his 8th head coach in 11 seasons. Matt Ishbia now 4th coach in 4 years. They've got to figure it out. They've got to nail this. They have to nail this. I don't ever think that Devin Booker wants to leave Phoenix, because I just don't like to get into speculation. But for a superstar like that, you've got to make sure he's taken care of. He stayed in Phoenix his entire life, and they got so close to winning the finals, and it's been downhill ever since. They were 2 games away, up 2-0 against Milwaukee, and yet they felt like they had to blow everything up, that they had to change everything to try and still contend for championships, when in reality, they nailed it with the KD trade. Kevin Durant was enough to win you a championship, in my opinion. I absolutely believe that. I think that if you kept Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, CP3, true point guard, that was the biggest complaint last year. See what DeAndre Ayton does for you. I think that team can seriously contend for a championship in the West. I honestly do, but it's going to be a really ugly offseason for the Phoenix Suns. I'm curious to see who they pick up at the head coach. I'm curious to see what value they get back for KD. How long does Bradley Beal stick around? But it's going to be an interesting offseason, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you guys watching. My name is Caden Kubler. See ya.